These protesters in Mexico City say cross-border migration is changing their country's capital for the worse. Over the last decade, an influx of mostly American so-called digital nomads have moved here to work remotely and also enjoy a cheaper cost of living. Protesters say the newcomers have driven up rents beyond the reach of locals.
If they're going to live in a country, they have to contribute to that country. The first and simplest issue is legal migration. They come here with visas or no visas, and still the change in purchasing power generates these problems of gentrification and displacement.
I'm here because gentrification is just one more step towards colonization, dispossession, and the exploitation of our resources. Right now it's about the people, but it won't be long before they run out of oil, water, or lithium in other countries and come and take them from us.
Many Americans in Mexico are able to still receive high salaries in dollars from U.S. companies by working on laptops from their apartments.
The government is directing its public policies towards people with higher purchasing power, often illegally displacing local populations who have lived in these neighborhoods for 40, 50, and we have even documented cases of up to 60 years. In 5 years, rents have increased by 47%. This is violent for the local population.
You know, it's always been interesting to me how when America is enforcing its border policies, it is seen as the villain, as the evil white regime, the colonizer, the racist who simply want to see America white again. And here's the thing about that. Nearly every other country, whether developed or underdeveloped, has a strict border policy, including Mexico. Look at this right here. This is right now, a current protest, mostly peaceful protest, wink, wink, that is taking place in Mexico City. And what is the subject of this protest? Immigration. That's right, folks. They want you to go home. They want you to either learn their language, to assimilate, or to get the hell out. Now imagine that. Somebody believing that it is actually politically correct to ask those who look to become a part of your culture to actually be a part of that culture. And when that doesn't happen and instead people flood in illegally, without respect of your law, you happen to do something about it.
Family, there are crazy gentrification protests in Mexico right now. Mexicans are crying and saying that they want an end to Americans, rich Americans moving to Mexico, enjoying in their country, not paying taxes and making things becoming expensive for them. One of the things they are mentioning is the price of rent right now in Mexico. They are saying the price of rent is going up by up to 47%. Gentrification comes in when these Americans, come to Mexico. And once they're in Mexico, they have big purchasing powers. Most of them work remotely. They work from their houses, they work for American farms and earn in dollars, so they pay rent with higher prices, and now the landlords are increasing the rents, and this is in turn affecting Mexicans, and Mexicans are now calling for the deportation of Americans if they cannot pay for the taxes, if they cannot learn Spanish, and also if they cannot, be able to respect the Mexican culture. And that is what is happening right now. There are crazy protests. People are asking for Americans to be deported. Family, this comes after months of mass deportations also in America. And most of the people who've been deported from America are Mexicans. It comes with a lot of rage when now these same Americans come to their country and the prices of commodities go higher in their country. So far, I have compiled a series of videos explaining what is happening right now in Mexico. Once the videos are done, we will get back and do a critical analysis about the same. Let's watch this together, family.
Let's talk about the protests happening in Mexico City. Locals are telling foreigners to pay taxes, learn Spanish, and respect the culture. And now people are saying, but if Americans said that to immigrants, everyone would be upset. But let's talk about why that comparison doesn't hold up. It is not the same thing at all. When immigrants like me come to the United States, we don't come to the United States just to buy off property and live off passive income. We come to work. We do the jobs nobody wants. We pay taxes whether we have papers or not. We build things. We respect the country. We contribute. Now compare that to what's happening in Mexico. The tourists or digital nomads, people that work remotely to escape high rents in the States, they are not there to integrate into the community. They live in Mexico, but they still work for U.S. companies getting paid U.S. dollars. They're not paying Mexican taxes. They're not part of the Mexican labor force. Overall, they're just not helping the Mexican economy. If anything, they are draining it. And the worst part is they tell us when we come over here to the United States to learn the language. They go over there, they don't learn the language. They treat the place like a fucking trend. And what ends up happening? They buy up all this property, increasing the value of property for people that have been there, living there, making it unaffordable for the locals in the country. And that's why people are protesting. They don't fucking hate foreigners. They hate the fact of what foreigners are doing, gentrifying the whole place. Everything, the rent's gone up, $2,000 and up. Everything being listed on Airbnb now. So don't say it's the same, because when we come over here, we're not fucking welcomed while contributing so much to the country, and we still get blamed for everything. While tourists that go to all these other countries like Mexico and my country of El Salvador, they get all the perks, while the locals pay the price.
Please tell me that you guys have heard about the protests that are happening in Mexico, where the Mexican people are protesting against the American migrants. Ironic, right? Yeah, these American people that are moving into their country and bringing their gentrification ways along with them, right? They're increasing the price on rent, increasing the pricing of goods, essentially kicking the locals out. What I'm trying to understand is, how is it that we have a president that just signed a bill into law where it includes a budget of $46 billion to complete a border wall when the Mexicans are literally stating, we don't want y'all here. We don't want you here. Who is this wall really for? What is this wall really for? Where is this $46 billion really going? If the Mexicans, the actual Mexican citizens, are not only stating you don't have to worry about us jumping the fence, but we actually are dealing with our own fight of getting you the fuck out of here. And actually, come to think of it, if we are cutting Medicaid, right? We're making cuts to Medicaid. Why the fuck is there still taxes being taken out of my check to go to Medicaid? You guys are cutting it. You don't need that money. So why are you still taxing me? Huh? If you guys are cutting Social Security, why the fuck are you still taxing me Social Security? You don't need the money because you're cutting it. You're cutting it. So where's my money going? Is this really just a big transfer of wealth, like everybody has been stating?
These protesters in Mexico City say cross-border migration is changing their country's capital for the worse. Over the last decade, an influx of mostly American so-called digital nomads have moved here to work remotely and also enjoy a cheaper cost of living. Protesters say the newcomers have driven up rents beyond the reach of locals.
If they're going to live in a country, they have to contribute to that country. The first and simplest issue is legal migration. They come here with visas or no visas, and still the change in purchasing power generates these problems of gentrification and displacement.
I'm here because gentrification is just one more step towards colonization, dispossession, and the exploitation of our resources. Right now it's about the people, but it won't be long before they run out of oil, water, or lithium in other countries and come and take them from us.
Many Americans in Mexico are able to still receive high salaries in dollars from U.S. companies by working on laptops from their apartments.
The government is directing its public policies towards people with higher purchasing power, often illegally displacing local populations who have lived in these neighborhoods for 40, 50, and we have even documented cases of up to 60 years. In 5 years, rents have increased by 47%. This is violent for the local population. We are debating whether to pay for electricity, water, or food. Of course, we choose to eat.
Some activists blame Mexico's government for encouraging them. However, there's no simple fix. Imposing tougher visa restrictions on Americans could worsen relations with the U.S. Mexican citizens in the U.S. also send billions of dollars in remittances back to their families in Mexico. In a world where travel and communication are faster and easier than ever, these two nations are finding it harder to have neighborly relations.
So what are we saying? Oh, oh yes. See, you guys only watch CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, and ABC and CBS, so on and so forth, right? So they neglect to show you what's actually happening in Mexico, but Anton from AntonDaniels.com is definitely going to continue to have the conversation on what is happening in Mexico, specifically in this instance, Mexico City. They don't want Americans there, and they saying take your punk ass dollars and go back to where you came from because we don't want you bringing your spending power and gentrifying what we got going over here in Mexico. They don't want you there, even though you come over here and you send a whole bunch of money back to Mexico.
I heard about all the protests in Mexico City. So apparently they're protesting because a lot of Americans keep moving to Mexico, and now the rent price has increased 47%. Yes, that is unfortunate. However, this got something to do with the Mexican government for allowing these practices to be in place and these greedy ass landlords. This is a rich versus poor issue, not the Americans versus non-Americans. They were saying that some Americans are working from home making U.S. money, but you got to understand, up here in America, the cost of living is too damn high up here as well. They did a few interviews out there in Mexico City, and one man said that he'd be struggling to decide if he want to pay for food, if he could pay for electricity, or water, I think was the third option. We got that same issue up here. Trust me. Trust me. And that's exactly why the government and these greedy ass landlords need to be penalized, because at the very end of the day, just because some people want to migrate to Mexico City, they should not inconvenience the locals. Y'all been living there for God knows how long. Why is the rent going up by 47%? Like I said, it's a rich versus poor issue. We have that same issue up here. And in the Americans' defense, they're moving out there to start a better life, because up here, $3,000 for some damn rent. And then you got to make 3 times that. Your credit score got to be a fucking 50,000. We struggling up here too. Imagine struggling up here in America, and then you move to another country so you can live a better life. And then they jack the rent price up anyway, 47%. Now the people that live in that country, the natives, don't like you because they feel like it's your fault. We can't win for losing, and it's not just us. There's other people from other countries that migrate to the U.S. for a better life, and it don't always work out that way either. They want to cause and create division. They want us to be mad at each other, and we're not the issue. We're not responsible for the rent prices. There was another woman in the interview. She said she feels like right after gentrification, here comes colonization, and she feels like they're going to come and exploit their resources when they run out and start taking all their resources. Don't get me wrong. When Americans get their hands on something, they do be ruining it. And this is coming from an American. But Americans ain't the only ones I've seen touch things that ain't got no business being touched and just being greedy. Once again, a government issue. We need to check our government, and y'all government need to be checked by y'all as well. These issues all lead up to people in positions of power. The government. Creating division is their specialty. And right now, like I said, this is a rich versus poor issue.
Mexican citizens protested yesterday against gentrification in Mexico, against Americans, Canadians, anybody who is remote working in Mexico. Thousands protest. There's even video if you search Mexican gentrification protests. They attacked American-looking people in restaurants, broke windows, like violence. They wanted to get at them. And it's because they're making Mexico expensive. And they're getting blamed for making Mexico expensive because they go around saying Mexico's cheap, come here. But by doing so, rents and everything else have gone up in Mexico, making it really hard for the citizens. I keep trying to explain that the economy there is on shaky ground. There is no work. The youth don't have work. And like you see here, eventually they hit a boiling point and they start to protest about it. And that's what's happening in Mexico right now. Super interesting to keep an eye on this. If I see more, I'll let you know.
It makes no sense why Mexicans are even protesting right now in Mexico when everything is happening back in the States, which is something that I'm sure most entitled and even very ignorant Americans and people around the world are thinking right now. And not necessarily understanding the fact of how your presence and the things that you bring along with you to these other countries impact the locals. So let's get into it. But before I do, you seem to be new here because this is something that I talk about all the time in respecting the countries you go to. So in the grand scheme of things, yes, I have answered your question in other videos and plethora of videos because this is very fucking important. Firstly, I want to start with saying that I feel like gentrification is a thing that happens regardless, and it's not just Americans' fault, I promise you. And gentrification happens in the states that have pushed certain groups of communities like black people out of certain areas to rebuild for other people that have more money or that look white. Let's be real. But then it's all done in the name of evolving and developing, but not actually thinking about or caring about the people within those areas and spaces. That's why moving through life with intention is so fucking important. And I'm sorry, these companies don't give a fuck about positive intention for you. And that aspect of gentrification is simply from the greed of these corporations and companies. And Mexico is not necessarily excluded from that because there are greedy companies all over. And I guarantee you there are greedy ass companies that are also Mexican companies that are contributing to this gentrification. And how companies and corporations move are simply why our politics also are the way that they are. And they got us out here fighting with one another and dividing with one another rather than actually looking at the true culprits of all of this. White supremacy and corporations. Come on now. But now let's get into the impact of actual Americans being there and all the shit that they come with. So one of the things that this person has mentioned within the comment is not using Mexican currency. One, I think that's super important to use Mexican currencies because if you're using dollars, now you're inconveniencing the people that are giving you service to then have to go convert that into pesos because you're in a country that is off of pesos. So you as the American, the Canadian, whatever country you are visiting from, you need to do your due diligence by going to an ATM or a cash exchanging place and utilizing the currency that is of the country that you are in, not just in Mexico. Because they shouldn't have to feel like that they're going through an extra step in their own fucking country because of you. And next is speaking English in a Spanish-speaking country. Trust me, I get it. It's annoying when you're having to try to speak to somebody and then they don't speak the language that you speak, especially when you're in your home country. But the thing that I find here is that a lot of Mexicans do judge or make you kind of feel bad for not speaking Spanish versus someone like me that is from the States. I've encountered people that speak so many different languages, Spanish, French, Italian, Mandarin, whatever, and we have to work through that. Or at least I do. You know what I mean? Because I surround myself with all types of fucking people. And sometimes I'm in spaces where they don't speak English. But I genuinely think that we all need to be patient with one another because language is hard. I took 4 years of fucking Spanish in high school and bitch, all I can say is yo no sé. But to make it easier on the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis in Mexico, I utilize translators and I also speak the words that I actually know. Because that's helping me better understand and learn Spanish, but also it is helping the person not be inconvenienced in their own country. And I think that is the root of the frustration, is that when you are in your own space, your own country, you want to feel comfortable and not feel like that you're being inconvenienced. And then you're being inconvenienced by these people that have made everybody's lives harder. Now let's get into the bragging part. If you are bragging rather than being grateful, get the fuck out. Because we should not be bragging about anything, okay? We should be grateful that we have a life. We should be grateful that we're able to do the things that we want to do. Because there are people in countries right now that can't even get anything to eat or drink. There are people in countries right now that don't even have a shelter that is stable. So for you to be bragging about anything just because you're in a country that is cheaper than what you're used to, no. And that's quite frankly why I don't even make content on this is how much here versus this is how much it is in the US. That's not cute, and it's never been cute for me. It's not. I think I did one video like that, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable with this. I'm good. And now I just show my experience here in Mexico, the history, the beauty, the stories of the people here, because that's what matters. Not that, you can get something for $10 here versus where you're in the States, it was like $200. Ugh, like come on now. But at the end of the day, we need to show all of each other grace, love, and gratitude. Because we are all going through some shit right now, and we need to come together to fight what? White supremacy and corporations. Now let's get into it.
Do you know how obnoxious you have to be to piss off the most hospitable people on the face of planet Earth? Right? A los ciudadanos del país de México, right? To the point where they're like, afuera, gringa afuera. Like, we're done, right? We're done. Like, it's so crazy, right? Because I made some content about this a couple of months ago. I told y'all, right? The Mexicans were getting done, right? When folks were going to the restaurant, y pide la carta in inglés, and like, come on, like learn Spanish, bro. It's not that hard to learn basic Spanish. And then driving up the rents, acting like you in the 51st state when you're in a completely different country. They had enough, man. They had enough, and I'm there for it. I hope all of these gringos, all of these fools get about 15,000 quiero llorars and get the hell out of there, man. Because again, they have really, really messed up the situation, or tried to mess up the situation in one of the best countries in the world, which is Mexico. Much love, baby. Estoy aquí en la lucha contigo.
It's always been interesting to me how when America is enforcing its border policies, it is seen as the villain, as the evil white regime, the colonizer, the racist who simply want to see America white again. And here's the thing about that. Nearly every other country, whether developed or underdeveloped, has a strict border policy, including Mexico. Look at this right here. This is right now, a current protest, mostly peaceful protest, wink, wink, that is taking place in Mexico City. And what is the subject of this protest? Immigration. That's right, folks. They want you to go home. They want you to either learn their language, to assimilate, or to get the hell out. Now imagine that. Somebody believing that it is actually politically correct to ask those who look to become a part of your culture to actually be a part of that culture. And when that doesn't happen, and instead people flood in illegally without respect of your law, you happen to do something about it.
Mexico no longer wants Americans in Mexico, and the reason why is because of this process called gentrification. And what that means is basically you have wealthier people moving into a neighborhood or moving into a city, and these wealthier people are okay because they are paying these cheaper prices. However, for the locals, now everything is going up. The cost of everything is going up because of the wealthier individuals moving into their neighborhood, and they don't want that. But also, the character changes. You see Americans, we have this American ideology of being able to speak freely and to change things when we don't like it. So these Americans are going to Mexico with these same ideologies, and they're trying to change that in Mexico. And the Mexicans are like, yeah, I don't like this. I don't like being able to not afford going out there and getting my my cheap tacos and my cheap beer and my massive amount of medication that is open, and I can't afford it now. They're not liking that, so they want Americans out. Isn't that crazy? Because in America, when we get tired of people burning our flag and protesting, looting, and basically taking our benefits and doing all that stuff, when we get tired, of that. What happens here? Oh yeah, the Democrats basically get mad and tell their gangsters to go into the street and do dangerous things to our federal law enforcement agencies. So I don't know. Maybe I think the thing that's happening in Mexico is actually a good thing, because maybe it will teach some people a lesson. I don't know. But anyway, just crazy where we're at in this world.
Family, when you look keenly, the issue of mass deportation in America, you'll notice that most people who have been deported out of America are actually Mexicans and Hispanics, in general. And now they are coming out and saying that these same Americans are destroying their economy in Mexico. These same Americans are paying a lot of rent, making the rent in their country to be expensive. They are complaining and saying that these Americans, when they come to Mexico, they work for American farms. Some of them even work from the comfort of their homes. They get to earn, using the American dollar. So they enjoy fully because they are now not paying for taxes. They are enjoying free tax. They're not paying for taxes, and they're working remotely. Some other things that they are doing is that they are paying rent higher, which makes the rent prices to in turn go higher for the locals, for Mexicans. And Mexicans have said that this is just too much for them. They do not want gentrification in their country. Gentrification is a situation by which rich people come and live to your country, and you, the locals, are affected because of the rich foreigners. So right now they are calling for Americans to go back to their country if they cannot respect their culture, if they cannot pay for taxes, if they cannot learn Spanish, because they say when they go to America they pay for tax. America does not care if they are citizens or not. They actually pay for taxes in America. The other thing they're saying is that when they go to America, they are forced to learn the cultures of Americans, and they actually respect them. And they are also facing harsh conditions. You understand, Trump has recently been pushing, since he took over as president, he's been pushing for mass deportations, and most of these same Mexicans have been deported out of America. And now this is working also as a revenge. There is no way you have laws in your country, and when you come to ours, the same laws do not work with you. These are some of the cries that Mexicans have, and to some extent, I actually understand, the frustration. But now, I think they can come up with an amicable solution with policies with their government to ensure that this actually happens. For me, I'd imagine if I was paying my rent, I'd say, let's say for $500. Then now, since Americans have come to Mexico, I'd have to pay at least $1,200. That is still expensive, But I understand in America the rent prices are so high. Mexicans are not used to that. So when these same Americans come to Mexico, the Mexican landlords know how much those people pay in their country, and they want to standardize the prices to match those of America, and that is where now the locals are starting to fight. They're starting to feel like gentrification is affecting them directly. That's why they are asking for these people to pay for taxes. They want them to feel the same way, where these shoes tightens them. They want Americans to also feel the same way. We've seen them being very, very vocal, speak about this. When you want to see these protests, you can actually type on TikTok, because it's a trending matter right now, gentrification protests in Mexico, and then you'll get to understand what is happening. Most of these people are tired. They do not want to treat people better when themselves have to face the law, in another country. And right now, when you check on TikTok, they want mass deportations for Americans, out of Mexico. They want for them to pay the usual prices. They do not want to go deeper into their pockets to get to enjoy things that they were enjoying from an affordable level. So guys, let me know in the comment section down below what you think about this new move by Mexicans to try and push Americans away or force them to either pay taxes, learn Spanish, and assimilate to their culture, respect the Mexican cultures. What do you all think about it? Comment down below in the comment section, and I'd really appreciate. Kindly like this video so that it can be recommended to other YouTube users. Lastly, kindly do consider subscribing to the channel for amazing news globally. Thank you, and see you all in our